Story 1. I was a freshman in college, just a few months into living on my own. Like any excited student, I couldn't wait for the night. Halloween parties were legendary, and my friends and I had been hyping it up for weeks. I had gone for a rock star look, wearing high-heeled boots and a leather jacket. They made me feel taller, tougher, and honestly, a little more confident. As we arrived at the party, the city was alive, filled with people in wild costumes, music blaring from every corner, and a crisp October chill in the air that made everything feel perfect. Inside, the party was exactly what I had hoped for: crowded, loud, and electric with energy. People danced, laughed, and snapped hundreds of pictures, trying to capture every moment. Hours passed in a blur, and by the time I finally slowed down, I realized something. My feet were killing me. The stylish boots that had made me feel like a superstar were now pure torture. My leather jacket, which had looked so cool earlier, was now too hot in the packed house. So I made what seemed like a reasonable decision at the time. I kicked off my boots and tossed my jacket onto a table, figuring I'd grab them before heading home. But when 3 a.m. rolled around and the party started dying down, I went to retrieve my things. They were gone. Just gone. I wasn't mad. Things go missing at parties all the time. But I quickly realized the bigger problem. No shoes, no jacket, no phone, no cash for a cab. And to make it worse, my dorm wasn't exactly close. I scanned the room for Jess, my best friend and roommate, but she had left hours ago with another group. My heart sank, but I told myself it was fine. I could walk back. It wasn't that far, right? Taking a deep breath, I stepped outside, feeling the cold pavement against my bare feet. The streets were still filled with drunken groups and late-night wanderers, but I felt oddly alone. Every little sound made me flinch, and I kept my head down, focusing on not stepping on broken glass or anything sharp. I was about halfway home when I noticed him, a man leaning against a street lamp watching me. He looked like he was in his mid-20s, with messy dark hair and a lazy smirk, like he had been waiting for something interesting to happen. I ignored him and kept walking, but just as I was about to pass, he stepped right in front of me, blocking my path. "Hey, you lost or something?" he asked, his eyes flicking to my bare feet. "What happened to your shoes?" I forced a smile, keeping my voice casual. "Just left them at a party. My dorm isn't far, I'm good." But he didn't move. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he said, his smirk widening. "Let me walk you home." Something about the way he said it sent a chill down my spine. I didn't want to say yes, but I also didn't want to anger him by refusing. So against my better judgment, I nodded slightly, hoping it would make him lose interest sooner. As we started walking, he kept the conversation light, asking if I had a good night, what I had dressed up as. But then his questions became more personal. "So, where exactly do you live? You got a boyfriend? Do you go out alone a lot?" Every question made me more uncomfortable, but I kept my answers short and vague, praying he would drop it. We were almost at my dorm when I slowed down, forcing a polite smile. "Thanks for walking with me, but I can make it from here," I said. His expression changed instantly. His smile disappeared. His eyes darkened. "Aren't you going to invite me in?" he asked, his voice low and cold. Panic hit my chest like a hammer. "No, I don't think that's a good idea," I said, my voice carefully steady. "I'm really tired." His jaw tightened. Before I could step back, he grabbed my wrist, tight. "Come on," he muttered, pulling me closer. "I walked you all the way home. The least you could do is say thanks properly." I yanked my arm, but his grip was too strong. "No, please," I whispered, my heart hammering in my chest. His smirk returned, twisted, cruel. All right," he said, leaning closer. "Just give me a hug. That's not too much to ask, right?" I was trapped, and I had no idea how to escape. I could barely breathe. His grip on my wrist tightened, his smirk fading into something darker. I needed to think fast. Forcing a nervous laugh, I nodded quickly. "Okay, fine. A quick hug. Then I really have to go." His expression shifted, pleased like he had won. I stepped forward, pretending to go in for a hug. The second his grip loosened, I yanked my arm free and spun away. I took off running. Barefoot, heart pounding, lungs burning, I sprinted toward the dorm entrance, my only escape. Behind me, I heard him curse. Then, footsteps. Fast, chasing me. I ran faster. The cold pavement cut into my feet, but I didn't stop. The only thing that mattered was getting inside, getting away from him. I reached the dorm doors, practically slamming into them as I grabbed the handle. Locked. Panic surged through me as I frantically banged on the glass, hoping someone, anyone, was inside. A few seconds passed like an eternity. Then, click. The door swung open and I stumbled in, turning just in time to see him halt outside, staring at me through the glass. His face was cold and motionless, except for his eyes. They were filled with rage. "You're lucky," he muttered, his voice muffled through the glass. Then he turned and disappeared into the night. I didn't move. Couldn't move. The dorm security guard walked up, frowning. "You okay?" he asked, eyeing my bare feet and shaking hands. I opened my mouth to explain, but my voice was gone. I just nodded, stepping inside as he locked the doors behind me. My hands trembled as I pulled out my dead phone, gripping it like it was some kind of protection. I needed to tell Jess. I needed to tell someone. Finally, my body caught up to my mind and I bolted for my dorm room, slamming the door shut behind me. I grabbed my charger, plugged in my phone, and the moment it turned on, I called Jess. She picked up on the first ring. "Oh my God, where have you been? I've been texting you all night." I told her everything. The missing boots, the guy, the chase, the locked door, his face outside the glass. She was horrified. "Stay with me tonight," she insisted. "I'm coming to get you." I didn't argue. I stayed up for hours, replaying everything over and over in my head, wondering what could have happened if I hadn't gotten away. That night changed me. Ever since, I've made sure that no one in my group gets left behind, especially the girls. Because the truth is, monsters don't just come out on Halloween. Some of them are already out there, waiting. Story 2. That was the night I'll never forget. I was a high school senior, and this was one of the last big nights my friends and I had together before graduation. We were beyond excited. One final Halloween before we all went our separate ways. I had planned my costume for weeks, something spooky yet fun. My best friend Emily had gone all out too, covering herself in green face paint and a pointy hat, fully embracing her wicked witch persona. Tonight was going to be perfect. The highlight of the night? A massive party at Sam's place, a guy from another school. He lived in a big house deep in the woods, and everyone was talking about it. By the time Emily and I arrived, the place was packed. People in crazy costumes, a giant bonfire in the backyard, music loud enough to shake the trees. Emily spotted her boyfriend and disappeared into the crowd, leaving me to wander with a few other friends. The night was going great. Candy, laughs, wild party games, until things started to get out of hand. It started around 11:30 p.m. A few guys, already drunk and reckless, thought it would be funny to light leftover fireworks, too close to the trees. Then someone threw an old pumpkin into the bonfire, and it exploded, sending burning embers flying everywhere. People screamed, smoke filled the air, and just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, flashing red and blue lights appeared at the edge of the yard. Cops. The moment people saw them, chaos erupted. Some bolted for their cars while others ran straight into the woods, trying to escape the party before getting caught. I frantically searched for Emily, but there were too many people, too much movement. Then I spotted her. She was a few yards away with her boyfriend, laughing as they vanished into the crowd. "Find a ride with Joe," she shouted over her shoulder. "I'll meet you at the next party." And just like that, she was gone. I turned, scanning the chaos, and saw a guy by his car waving me over. I recognized him. Joe, I think? I had seen him around school but never really talked to him. Still, with cops closing in, I didn't have time to think. I ran to his car, jumped in the passenger seat, and shut the door. "Thanks for the ride," I said, trying to catch my breath. He didn't say much, just nodded and pulled away from the party. The car was a mess, empty soda cans, fast food wrappers, a faint smell of cigarettes, and something stale. He was dressed in a flannel shirt, part of some horror movie costume, with a mask resting on the dashboard. I tried making small talk, but something felt off. The farther we drove, the quieter the night became. Then I noticed something. We weren't heading back toward town. The houses started to disappear, replaced by dense trees and empty roads. A strange feeling curled in my stomach. "So, where's the next party?" I asked, forcing a casual tone. He hesitated. Then, without looking at me, he muttered, "Not too far." That answer didn't comfort me. I glanced at my phone, 2% battery. I quickly typed a text to Emily. "Heading to the next party. See you soon." Before I could check if it went through, my screen went black. I swallowed hard, my heartbeat picking up. "Are we almost there?" I asked, forcing a fake laugh. He kept his eyes on the road. Then, in a low, flat voice, he said, "Yeah, we'll be there soon." Something about his tone made my skin crawl. The road grew darker. The only light came from the moon and his headlights. Then, after what felt like forever, he made a turn onto a narrow gravel road. Up ahead in the distance was a small, run-down house. No cars, no lights, just a single flickering bulb over the front door. This did not look like a party. A chill ran through me as I stared at the abandoned-looking house. "Is this the place?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He pulled the car to a stop and turned to look at me for the first time. A slow, unsettling smile spread across his face. "Yeah," he said, "we're here." My stomach twisted. This place didn't look like a party. It looked abandoned, wrong. I forced a smile, trying to keep my voice calm. "Actually, I think I left something at the last party." I reached for the door handle, but before I could open it, his hand shot out, gripping my wrist tight. "Relax," he said, his tone too casual. "You just got here." My pulse spiked. I yanked my arm, but his grip only tightened. His expression shifted. The friendly act was gone. "Come on," he muttered. "Let's go inside." I forced a laugh, trying not to let him hear the fear in my voice. "Actually, I'm just going to call Emily. Make sure she's here first." I lifted my dead phone, pretending to dial. His eyes darkened. For a second, he just stared at me. Then slowly, his grip loosened. "Fine," he muttered, shoving open his door. "Come inside after you're done." He climbed out and slammed the door shut. The second he turned away, I moved fast. I yanked the lock down, grabbed the handle. Nothing. The door wouldn't open. I froze. He had child locks on. My heartbeat hammered in my ears. I darted a glance outside. He was walking toward the house, his back turned. This was my chance. I lunged into the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel. Keys. Where were the keys? My hands searched the dashboard, the cup holders. Nothing. I risked a glance outside. He was at the front door now, fumbling with something in his pocket. I didn't have time. There was only one way out. Taking a deep breath, I slammed my foot into the passenger window. Crack. The sound split through the night. My heart raced. I kicked again, harder. Crash. The glass shattered. My hands were shaking as I hauled myself through the broken window, ignoring the sting as the sharp edges scraped my arms. The second my feet hit the ground, I ran. I didn't look back. Didn't stop. I just sprinted toward the trees, my breath coming out in sharp, panicked gasps. Behind me, I heard a furious shout. Then, footsteps. He was chasing me. The forest was pitch black, branches scraping my skin as I pushed forward, heart slamming against my ribs. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to keep running. Then, headlights. Up ahead, through the trees, I saw a glow. A gas station. I poured everything into a final sprint, bursting out of the woods and onto the pavement. A clerk inside the gas station turned, his eyes widening as he saw me running toward the door. I crashed inside, barely able to breathe. "Help me," I gasped. "Please." The clerk's expression hardened. "Who's after you?" I turned to point, but the man was gone. Just empty road and dark trees. I collapsed against the counter, my whole body trembling. The clerk quickly locked the doors and handed me his phone. "Call someone." With shaking hands, I dialed Emily. She picked up on the first ring. "Where the hell are you?" I told her everything. She and her boyfriend rushed to get me. And by the time they arrived, I was still standing inside the gas station, my arms covered in tiny cuts from the glass. I didn't sleep that night, didn't even close my eyes. And the next morning, when Emily drove me back to school, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A single, crumpled note tucked under the windshield wiper of her car. I picked it up with shaking hands. 4 words, messy, scribbled, haunting. I'll find you again. Story 3. I was 15 years old, probably too old for trick-or-treating, but my best friend Ethan and I had decided to go one last time. I mean, free candy. Who says no to that? Our neighborhood was legendary for trick-or-treating. Huge houses with massive front yards, full-size candy bars instead of the mini ones, decorations so good they looked straight out of a horror movie every year. Kids from all over town flocked to our neighborhood, hoping to fill their bags to the top. And tonight, the night was perfect. The air was cool but not freezing. The streets were packed with kids in costumes, and everything felt exactly like Halloween should. Ethan had gone all out on a zombie costume, covering himself in fake blood and torn clothes. I had dressed as a vampire, my long black cape making me feel like I could actually fly. We had mapped out the best houses, planning our route to maximize our candy haul. And for the first hour, everything was great, until we noticed the van. It was parked under a flickering streetlight, just sitting there. A white van, no windows in the back, old and rusted. It looked like something straight out of a horror movie. Ethan nudged me, grinning. Creepy van, 10 out of 10 for Halloween vibes. I laughed, shrugging it off. Maybe they're waiting for their kid. I tried not to think about it. We kept walking, hitting more houses, stuffing more candy into our pillowcases. But a few blocks later, I glanced back over my shoulder, and my stomach dropped. The van's headlights flicked on. It started moving, slowly, creeping down the street right behind us. My skin prickled. Ethan, I whispered. It's following us. He turned, frowned. Nah, man, just a coincidence. I wanted to believe that. But as we turned the next corner, the van turned too. Still slow, still following, not passing us, not stopping at any houses, just lurking. My heart picked up speed. Okay, this is getting weird, Ethan muttered. We sped up. So did the van. We turned onto a side street, hoping to lose it. A few seconds passed, no van. I exhaled, relieved. See? Probably nothing. Then, headlights flicked on at the end of the block. The van was there, waiting, like it had known exactly where we were going. My chest tightened. Okay, let's knock on someone's door, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, just in case. We walked up to a house with its porch light still on, ringing the doorbell. A middle-aged man opened it, frowning. Trick or treat, Ethan said, forcing a nervous smile. The man looked at us, our half-full candy bags, the way we were standing too close to each other. Isn't it a little late for trick-or-treating? He asked. Then without another word, he shut the door. We stood there, frozen. I turned back to the street. The van was parked directly across from us. Its headlights flicked on and off, like it was signaling us. My breath hitched. Ethan, I whispered, we need to run. And just like that, we bolted, our feet slamming against the pavement, adrenaline surging through us. We didn't stop, didn't look back, but we heard it. The van's engine roared to life, and it started chasing us. We ran as fast as we could. Our feet slammed against the pavement, our breath ragged and uneven. The van's engine roared behind us, tires crunching against the street as it picked up speed. It was chasing us. Cut through the yards, Ethan yelled. We darted across a lawn, leaping over a low fence and landing hard in someone's backyard. For a split second, I thought, maybe we lost it. Then, tires screeched. The van whipped around the corner, its headlights sweeping across the yard. It saw us. Panic surged through me. I grabbed Ethan's arm. Keep running. We vaulted over another fence, landing in an alley, our legs burning as we sprinted toward the main road. The van's engine revved again. It was still following. We needed to get somewhere safe. A house? A store? A group of people? Then I saw it. A gas station at the end of the block. There, I gasped. We pushed harder, feet pounding against the pavement. The van sped up too. It was right behind us. We burst into the gas station, nearly collapsing against the counter. The cashier, a tall guy with glasses and a tired expression, looked up in surprise. Whoa, What's wrong with you guys? I turned toward the glass doors, panting. The van had stopped at the curb, just sitting there, watching. I felt my stomach twist. Ethan was gasping for air, his face pale. That van, he panted. It's been following us. The cashier's expression darkened. What van? I turned back, and my heart dropped. It was gone. Just vanished. A second ago, it was right there. Now, nothing. Ethan and I just stared at each other, both of us still trying to process what just happened. The cashier frowned, clearly not convinced. You sure you're not just jumpy? It's Halloween, man. I didn't answer, because I knew what I saw, and I knew that van was real. The cashier shook his head. Whatever, just stay inside for a while, all right? We nodded, sinking onto the plastic chairs near the window. Minutes passed, then an hour. Nothing. The streets outside were empty now, the Halloween crowd long gone. I finally exhaled, my heart slowing down. Maybe we were wrong, Ethan murmured. I wanted to believe that. I really, really did. But then, the phone behind the counter rang. The cashier picked it up. Yeah? Uh-huh. No, there's no one here by that name. His brows furrowed. Then his face went pale. Slowly he turned to us, his hands shaking slightly. The guy on the phone, he said, voice tight. He just asked for you. By name, my stomach dropped. I shot up from my chair. Who was it? The cashier swallowed hard. I don't know. He just said... He hesitated, then looked me dead in the eyes. He just said, tell him I'll see him next Halloween. Story 4. I was 14, just starting high school, and this was going to be our final year trick-or-treating. My best friends, Nate and Will, had agreed. This was it. One last adventure. We had big plans. Hit every house possible, get more candy than ever before. Maybe, just maybe, pull off a little mischief. The night started perfectly. The streets were alive with costumes and decorations, pumpkins glowing on every porch, the crisp October air making everything feel just right. For hours we ran from house to house, bags filling fast, laughing as we compared who got the best stuff. By the time we were done, our bags were overflowing, but we weren't ready to go home. One more stop, Will said, grinning. I knew exactly what he meant. The widow's house. Everyone in town knew the story. An old farmhouse just outside of town where a woman named Violet had lived alone for decades after her husband mysteriously vanished one winter. People said grief drove her mad, that after she died, her ghost never left. Some swore they had seen shadows in the windows, flickering lights inside even though the house had been abandoned for years. No one dared to go near it, and of course, that made us want to go even more. You guys scared? Will taunted. No way, Nate shot back. I hesitated. Something about the idea felt wrong, but I didn't want to be the coward of the group. Let's do it, I said. So we went. The farmhouse loomed ahead, surrounded by dead trees and a rusted fence. Up close, it was even creepier than I remembered. The windows were shattered, the wooden walls rotting, vines creeping up the sides like nature was trying to swallow it whole. I felt a chill creep up my spine. Okay, we saw it. Let's go. Will smirked. Not so fast. He pulled out a flashlight and headed toward the back entrance. We didn't come all this way just to look at it. Nate and I exchanged nervous glances, but we followed him anyway. The back door was barely hanging on its hinges. Will pushed it open. The house groaned as if it was warning us to leave. A wave of dust and stale air hit us as we stepped inside. The silence was thick, like the whole house was holding its breath. Everything inside was frozen in time. Dust-covered furniture cobwebs hanging like curtains, peeling wallpaper, revealing dark, moldy patches underneath each step we took, made the wood creak beneath our feet. Something about the place felt off, like it was watching us. Okay, this is actually creepy, Nate muttered. I agreed, but Will, he was loving it. You guys are babies, he whispered, grinning. Let's go upstairs. Upstairs, where Violet had died, where people claimed to see shadows moving at night. My stomach twisted, but Will was already heading for the staircase. Nate hesitated, then followed. I didn't want to be alone. so I went too. The stairs creaked loudly as we climbed. At the top was a long, narrow hallway lined with closed doors. The air felt colder, stale. Then we heard it, a soft, deliberate thud right above us. We froze. I could hear my own heartbeat. Nate's voice came out barely above a whisper. "Tell me that was one of you?" I shook my head. Will's grin wavered. "Probably just an animal," he muttered, but his voice wasn't as cocky anymore. Then, another sound, a slow, dragging noise, like something shifting upstairs. I think we should go," I whispered. Will hesitated. Then he took a step forward, toward the last door in the hallway, the one that was slightly open. I wanted to stop him. I should have stopped him, but I didn't. And the moment he touched the doorknob, something moved inside the room, something big, and before any of us could react, the door slammed shut. The door slammed shut, hard, like something inside had pushed it closed. We jumped back, my heart slamming against my ribs. "What the hell was that?" Nate hissed. Will stared at the door, his cocky grin completely gone. For a second, no one moved. The hallway felt colder, the house dead silent. Then footsteps, slow, heavy, coming from inside the room. I grabbed Will's arm. "We need to go. Now!" For once, he didn't argue. We turned and bolted for the stairs. But the moment we reached the top step, a door slammed behind us. Then another, and another. One by one, the doors lining the hallway were closing, on their own. Panic shot through me. "Run!" We flew down the stairs, practically tripping over each other. As we hit the bottom floor, something banged against the ceiling above us. Loud, like heavy footsteps, following us down. I felt like the walls were closing in, like the house itself didn't want us to leave. We tore through the living room, heading for the back door. Will reached it first, yanking on the handle. It wouldn't budge. "It's locked! It's locked!" he shouted. I spun toward the front door, raced for it, grabbed the handle. It wouldn't move either. "How is that possible?" Nate yelled. I had no answer. Then, we heard it. A voice, a whisper, right behind us. "You shouldn't be here." My blood turned to ice. Slowly, so slowly, I turned my head and saw it. A shadowy figure standing at the bottom of the stairs. Tall, thin, wrong. Its eyes nothing but hollow dark voids. And it was watching us, waiting. I grabbed Will's arm. "We have to get out. Now." "How?" Nate snapped. "The doors are locked." I looked around, searching, desperate. Then I saw it. A window. It was old, glass cracked, breakable. I ran straight for it. "Help me!" Will and Nate caught on fast. Together we grabbed a chair and hurled it through the glass. The window shattered, pieces flying everywhere. No hesitation. We climbed through, ignoring the scrapes and cuts, landing hard on the overgrown grass outside. We didn't stop running, not until we were back on the main road, gasping for breath. We looked back. The house was silent. No figure in the window. No movement. Just stillness. Like nothing had ever happened. But I knew better. We all did. Nate wiped his face, still shaking. "Never again." Will swallowed hard, nodding. "Yeah." None of us spoke on the walk home. But we didn't have to. Because that shadow in the house, it wasn't just watching us leave. It was waiting. Like it knew we'd be back. Like it was patient. And to this day, I swear I still feel it watching, waiting, for someone else to be stupid enough to go inside. Story 5. I was 21, living in a small, creaky apartment downtown with my boyfriend of nearly 3 years. At least, I thought we were solid until that night. That was the night I found out he had been cheating on me. My entire world shattered in an instant. We were in the middle of packing up our stuff, both pretending like we weren't about to become strangers. The air was thick with silence, except for the occasional sharp exchange of words. I felt angry, heartbroken. Number my friends had invited both of us to a big Halloween party, but after what I had just discovered, I had no plans to go. Why would I? But then, a small, stubborn part of me thought, why should I sit here miserable while he moves on? So I grabbed my keys, threw on a last-minute costume, and walked out the door. The streets were alive with Halloween energy, people in costumes, laughter echoing from bars, the city buzzing with excitement. I took a deep breath, trying to convince myself I was fine. But my mind kept replaying everything. The apartment we shared felt like a graveyard of broken promises. I needed distraction. I needed air. I rolled down my car window, letting the cool October breeze hit my face. Ahead, the streetlight turned red. As I slowed to a stop, I barely noticed the guy crossing in front of me. He was young, maybe a few years older than me, dressed in a faded hoodie and worn-out jeans. His walk was slow, casual, like he had nowhere to be. Then he looked up. Our eyes met for just a second, and something about it made me uneasy. I should have rolled up my window. I should have looked away, but I didn't. And that's when he changed direction, walking straight toward my car. My chest tightened. I forced myself to stay calm. "Got a light?" he asked, leaning into the open window. His voice was too friendly, too casual. I hesitated, but handed him my lighter. Big mistake. Instead of taking it, his hand shot past mine and unlocked my passenger door. Before I could react, he climbed inside, shut the door, settled into the seat, like he had been invited. My blood ran cold. "Thanks for the ride," he said, flashing a lazy grin. "You look like you could use some company." My heart pounded. I forced a shaky smile, trying not to let him see my hands trembling. "Where are you headed?" I asked, my voice too light, too forced. I was stalling, trying to figure out how to get him out without making things worse. He shrugged. "Anywhere but here. Got dumped tonight." He sighed dramatically, glancing at me with a too-wide grin. "Can you believe that?" I nodded slowly, pretending to sympathize. "Yeah, rough night." My mind was racing. I was only a few blocks from a gas station. If I could just get there, get near people. "Hey," he said suddenly, snapping me back. "You got any spare change? Just a couple bucks for the bus?" My fingers tightened around the steering wheel. Yeah, sure." I reached into the console, pulling out some coins. I held them out, hoping he'd take them and go. Instead, he took a few coins, then started tossing them, one by one, down my shirt. I froze, my fear twisted into anger. "Cut it out!" My voice was shaky but firm. He just laughed, tossing another coin. "Aw, don't be like that." Then in a low voice, "You're too pretty to be driving alone, you know." My stomach churned. The gas station was up ahead. Its neon lights felt like a lifeline. I forced a casual tone. "All right, this is my stop. Let's both hop out while I grab some gas." For a second, he hesitated. His eyes flicked to me, calculating. Then he shrugged. "Yeah, sure." He pushed open the door and stepped out. The second he did, I slammed the locks down, shoved the car into drive, and peeled out of the parking lot. In the rearview mirror, I saw him watching me. Still grinning, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. My heart pounded as I drove home, locking the doors behind me. I texted my best friend, telling her everything. She freaked out. "That could have been so much worse," she wrote. "You got lucky." And she was right, because somewhere out there, that guy is still out there, still smiling, still looking for another car, another girl, another moment when a door is unlocked. I drove fast, my hands shaking on the wheel. My mind kept replaying everything. The coins down my shirt, the way he smiled like he knew a secret, the way he sat there, comfortable, like he belonged. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. I needed to get home, lock my doors, forget this ever happened. But just as I turned onto my street, I saw something that made my stomach drop. A figure, standing on the sidewalk, waiting, watching. My breath caught. For a second I thought, it's him. But as I got closer, I realized, no, it wasn't. It was just a random guy walking his dog. I exhaled sharply, forcing myself to calm down. I was just paranoid. That guy from the car, he was long gone. I was safe now. Right? I pulled into my apartment complex, quickly locking my car doors. The building was quiet, most people either asleep or still out partying. I hurried inside, checking over my shoulder before locking the door behind me. The apartment was cold and empty. I stood there listening to the silence. For the first time, I felt it, the full weight of being alone. I hated that feeling. I plugged in my phone, waiting for it to charge. The second it turned on, I texted my best friend. Me. Something creepy just happened. I'll call you in a second. She replied instantly. Her. What happened? I started typing a response. But then, something outside caught my eye. Through my living room window, a car parked across the street. I froze. The headlights were off. The engine wasn't running, but it was just sitting there. I squinted, my heart pounding. I couldn't see the driver, but somehow, I knew. I knew it was him, watching, waiting. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone, typing fast. Me. I think he followed me. Her. What? Lock your doors. Call someone. I was already on it. I locked every window, every door. Then, I peeked through the blinds. The car was still there. I could feel my pulse in my throat. I thought about calling the cops. But what would I even say? A guy got into my car and now a random vehicle is outside? It sounded crazy. But still, I didn't look away, not for a second. I needed to know if he'd get out, if he'd try something. I stared at that car for an hour, and then it drove away, slowly, like he wanted me to see, like he was saying, not tonight, but maybe next time. I didn't sleep. The next morning I walked outside feeling different, more cautious, more aware. I checked every car, every person I passed on the street, because now I knew the truth. Some people, they don't just look for unlocked doors. They look for people who don't expect them. People who don't realize the danger until it's too late. I got lucky that night, but someone else might not be so lucky. And the scariest part, he's still out there, looking for his next ride.